นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนะมัสสามิ Blessings. One of the good things about a meditation retreat is that you keep coming back to the practice of mindfulness, stillness, developing the one who knows, this quality of knowing. Because as we know, it's quite elusive half the time. Much of the time we don't have so much mindfulness and we get lost in our thoughts and our dreams and our sleepiness. So Ajahn Chah used to say, well, it's like filling a jar with water. If you keep dropping the water in, even if it's only slowly and occasionally, sooner or later your jar will fill up. It's the same with the practice of mindfulness. You keep coming back to it, bringing your attention back to your body, your mind in the present moment, using different objects such as the breath. It has a very powerful conditioning effect on the mind. And we incline more and more to being aware, being with the knowing. One moment of mindfulness is a condition for another moment of mindfulness to arise. Sometimes it even seems easy or almost automatic, meaning you've done it enough that at that time when you feel like that, the mind is quite easily or naturally letting go of the distractions, the 5 hindrances, all the obstacles to being mindful drop away quite naturally. Other times it seems like real hard work, and you might not even really achieve what we call mindfulness. You can achieve what I call half-mindfulness, where you're kind of aware that you're trying to practice with your mind and be aware, but at the same time that the thoughts are overwhelming you and taking you away from the present moment, getting lost in mental proliferation, different moods, memories, all kinds of trains of thought overwhelming you. At those moments, Ajahn Chah used to say, well, contemplate is not sure, is it? It's not permanent. Whatever mental state you're experiencing or train of thought, the one thing you can be sure about it is that it's not sure. It doesn't last forever. That's wisdom. You may not be able to establish mindfulness on the breath or another object during that period where your mind is full of anxiety or restless or desiring something, fantasizing about stuff. It seems like mindfulness is far away, but there's the half-mindfulness is that awareness occasionally that surfaces, and you say, I wonder how long this will last. Sometimes it's just more casual desires for things. Sometimes it's more traumatic and moods of stress that really are difficult to cope with. But you have no choice because they've come up into your mind. But still you can follow along with this half-mindfulness and contemplate, when's this going to end? When will it change? All you need to do is do that once. Follow a train of thought or a mood, even if it seems to last for ages. Follow it right to its conclusion and then see how it fades away from your consciousness. You do it once and you know, it's impermanent, it changes. And you can use that understanding next time with your half-mindfulness as you're dealing with sorrow or rage or despair or whatever, the more extreme kind of mood is. Just establish that half-awareness as this will pass. I don't know how long it will last, but it will pass, it will change. And then observe it through to the end. This is something, if you're meditating, you can do quite reasonably. Of course, you don't want to go and act on a lot of unskillful intentions and thoughts that come up, because if you are experiencing a lot of rage or despair, you may have the thought to do something harmful or not very skillful. You don't necessarily act on that, so you do have to rely on your sila as well and your general restraint and composure. But just this mental proliferation that besets the mind, takes over the mind, you can watch it and you say, well, how long will this last? 1 minute, 5 minutes, half an hour? In the end, it doesn't matter. You just keep watching and you're proving to yourself that every condition of mind, every mental state, every sankhara, every mental formation is impermanent. And if you can be mindful at that moment when it passes away and your whole mood changes, so it could be that you're anxious about something, you're worrying about something, and you follow it through, and then it gradually subsides, and then you feel like, now you're settled, it's gone. Or you've been sleepy and drowsy and struggling with that, and then eventually it's gone. Or you've been angry, irritated about something, and you followed it through, and eventually it's gone. When you're mindful of that, and you're mindful of the impermanence of what you were just experiencing, that's a very valuable insight that you can use again. In a way, that's what insight is, isn't it? It's wisdom that arises and some of it sticks with you for the future. True insight is like that. Something that stays with you, and just like the practice of mindfulness, filling up the jar, it has a cumulative effect the more you practice. Insight's the same, reflecting on the Dhamma, seeing impermanence in your experience. That gradually, you're educating your mind, you're learning. And maybe you reach a point in your practice where you don't need to struggle so much, even if you have a lot of distractions, moods taking over the mind. You know this is impermanent. It's just mental proliferation. Sometimes it's about more wholesome, skillful stuff. Sometimes it's horrible stuff. But it all arises and ceases. Every thought arises and ceases. And the perception of impermanence becomes more established in the way you look at things. You know this too will pass, this is impermanent. And you gain a lot of confidence from that, and you can use it to cut things off quicker. Because if you've seen impermanence in or this mental proliferation that you sort of feel prey to when you're meditating, if you've seen it before, And you can quickly apply the perception of impermanence and say, this won't last. And you get quicker and sharper to see, to know impermanence as you're also trying to develop mindfulness, of course. But even if mindfulness is shaky or you've only got half mindfulness, you bring in the perception of impermanence, and it can help to undermine a lot of that proliferation that we identify with, we get caught up in. Why do we feed it? Why does it take over our mind? It's because we believe it. And we say, this is me. I'm worried. I'm angry. I want this. There's something you want, and you're thinking about it. You believe it, and you become that person who is worried or who's angry. But the perception of impermanence is saying, well, it's not that you're not there, there's still somebody there witnessing all this, observing all this, but now you're saying, well, I don't have to be worried, anxious, angry, full of desire, because these are impermanent states of mind. And there's another part of the mind that is the mindfulness and the wisdom that is growing through the practice. So you're learning how to interrupt craving. I talk a lot about craving, but how does craving manifest in the mind? Well, it's like this, isn't it? Different moods and desires, wanting, not wanting, liking, not liking, proliferating around the future, holding on to the past, going over things that were bad, longing for things that were good that you've lost, and so on. This is craving at work in your mind. But as you bring up more mindfulness and you reflect on impermanence, you can sort of see patterns. You see how things are working. And there's a higher awareness that starts to develop. It says, well, that craving, it's only so much. It's just mental proliferation, thoughts arising, passing away. And your mind doesn't give quite so much importance to it. You don't identify with it so strongly over time. So never despair when you're meditating and you feel you're not peaceful, everything is not working. Because one of the biggest obstacles in meditation that you'll probably notice even on this retreat is the desire or the thought, I can't do it, it's a waste of time. And if you give in to that, well, then you won't even start meditating, or whether it's sitting, walking meditation, you won't put any effort forth because you've already undermined your effort. If you say it's a waste of time, I'm not peaceful enough to do this, I'm thinking too much. You have to give it a chance. Give your own mind a chance to settle down. Give your mindfulness a chance to be established. And use the wisdom that you've already practiced. Bring it into your mind at that time, the perception of impermanence. Okay, I'm not peaceful, but how long will it last? And keep watching. When you're watching, you're not totally passive. You're trying to establish mindfulness, bring up this quality of knowing, but it may be an effort sometimes because of the power of the different moods that take over the mind. But you're still trying, but you use the knowledge that the mood, the proliferation you're facing is impermanent. So give it a go. Anyone who's learned to develop states of stillness, calm their mind, understand the Dhamma more, has done this. They've learned to be patient with their moods and work with them and work to establish mindfulness and understand things better, to get clarity. As Ajahn Chah used to say, they didn't give up. Anyone who's attained some state of calm where their mind is really under their control, well, they work for that. They practice to that point. They didn't give up. They overcame their initial doubts. Oh, is it worth it? Why should I do this? They overcome the different hindrances through the practice. And sooner or later, the stillness starts to emerge. Sometimes you can use the perception of impermanence, very quickly. You're just starting to get caught into a train of thought that's taking you away from the present moment, and you catch it. You say, "Oh, this is impermanent too," and then you can let it fade out very quickly. Because a lot of our mental activity is repeat performances, stuff you've thought before. Aversions and irritations and negativity you've thought before and you've seen before. Desires that you've seen before that didn't get anywhere and didn't bring you any real peace. Because it's something that you've seen before, you just cut it off and say, I've seen this before. Let it go, it's impermanent, it's not going to make me peaceful or satisfied, only spins the mind out, tires me out, doesn't bring me any lasting happiness. Whatever reflection you need to use, you use it in conjunction with the perception of impermanence, and you cut it off straight away. You see this particularly on meditation retreats. If you're normally quite active, busy person, and most people are, in daily life we're always looking for the next thing to do. I've got to go here, do this task, this job. I'm going to relax now, I'm going to do this when I relax, I'm going to look at my phone, I'm going to seek this out, do that, talk to that person. There's always something you've got to do. When you're on retreat, although there is a schedule, you do a lot of just sitting and walking, but those usual activities you're involved with, you're not doing. So the mind is got all this energy, restless energy. Stuff starts to come up that normally you don't notice. So you will have to be quite patient with that. But use the practice to help you. Try to establish mindfulness and have the right attitude, maybe develop a skillful attitude. I'm learning about myself. This is going to be useful for me. And see how impermanent it is. The mind just moving from object to object, thought to thought, desire to desire, emotion to emotion. When it's working well, you develop more mindfulness and you develop more equanimity. This kind of elusive quality that you hear about a lot in Buddhism. Like the Buddha taught the 7 factors of enlightenment, the Bojjhangas. Establish mindfulness, investigate the Dhamma, Dhamma Vichaya, develop effort and energy in your practice, Viriya. From this you'll experience some rapture, some joy, the joy of investigating and letting go of defilement. This brings tranquility of body and mind. Start to experience the stillness of Samadhi. And with Samadhi we can see the true nature of phenomena as impermanent, as not self, and experience equanimity. You'll notice when mindfulness is stronger, you become more equanimous. You may see some of those worries and loves and hates that normally fill the mind, but you don't just jump to their tune, you don't react to them all, you just watch them, and you can maybe watch them arise and pass away without getting involved with them. More equanimity. can watch the pain in your body and be observant of that. Oh, there's pain, but you don't react to it in the normal old way of getting upset or moving or giving up the meditation. You just watch it. Oh, it's like that. Pain is like that. It's just a feeling. Comes and goes. When everything comes together, then we experience equanimity, and the sense of ownership of all the stuff that we're normally caught up in fades with equanimity. It's not dullness. Some people think equanimity is like dullness or numbness. Numbness to the world. You don't feel anything, you don't know anything. You're just kind of in this blurry, dull state. That's not equanimity. That's dullness, blurry state. Maybe the state just before you fall asleep. Or some people are able to meditate and they get to this state of dullness where they kind of don't really feel anything much at all. They're not mindful, but they're just kind of sort of sitting there surviving the meditation period, but they don't know much at all. That's not equanimity. Equanimity is still knowing things, knowing objects, but letting go. Letting go of the liking, the disliking, the craving, the attachment, and knowing things and being able to investigate and know clearly the way things are. They say the mind of the arahant has gone beyond the attachment to the world. What they call it, lokutara citta, transcends the world. Means no longer upset by the unpleasant words of other people. No more upset by the losses of life, the failures, the losses, the unpleasant experiences, physical pain of the body. The arahant is neither upset by the losses or excited by the gains. You're not sitting there waiting for the next bit of pleasure or the next success or the next buying the next thing, getting the next thing, getting the next bit of praise, the next bit of nice words, nice bit of pleasure. They're equanimous to all this, what we call the worldly dhammas. Their mind isn't shaken by the ups and downs of life, the pleasure, the pain, the gain, the loss, the praise, the blame, status, loss of status. Nothing phases the arahant, nothing shakes the mind of the arahant because they've achieved equanimity through this practice of training in mindfulness and then reflecting particularly on the impermanent nature of this world and all the experiences we have. Nothing lasts. I had one friend, a monk, who went off to go on retreat on his own, and he just used this one phrase, nothing lasts, a reflection on impermanence. And he just kept applying it to everything that arose while he was sitting and walking meditation every day. Nothing lasts. Any thought doesn't last. As soon as it's arising, you know it will pass away. Any mood, good moods, happy moods, sad moods, moods of disappointment, moods of depression, nothing lasts. In the end, the mind achieves equanimity, just seeing the impermanent nature of physical, mental phenomena. When we're not very mindful, we're not reflective, the mind does move with it all. It gets caught up in it all, doesn't it? We're constantly seeking the next stimulation, the next interesting thing, the next pleasure, and trying to get rid of what we don't like. That's one of the obstacles in the practice as well, isn't it? Fear of discomfort. So I can't meditate, I'm going to feel like I felt before, or I felt bored, or I felt dull, or you've had some previous experience that wasn't so good, that can hold you back. You say, oh, I don't want to meditate. Or you're worried about pain in your body. Oh, I can't meditate, my legs hurt. Well, that's actually just part of having a human body. You experience pain with a body. Nobody complains about the pleasure. I guess it does happen. Occasionally you hear meditators say, oh, don't get attached to the bliss of Samadhi. But I'd say it's rather a small number. Much larger number is the people who say, oh, it's too painful, I can't meditate, can't be with the pain. If they don't say it, at least they think it. So they don't want to try meditation or go on a retreat. Seems too difficult, too challenging. They haven't even done it yet, it's only in their mind. It's a picture, isn't it? We do this all the time, we paint pictures about something that is coming up, and if it's something we don't like, or think we won't like, think will be unpleasant, that may stop us doing it. You haven't even done anything yet. Already you've thought it up, and that becomes, a perception you attach to, a view. So it's one of the biggest obstacles in the beginning is the thought, I can't do this, I can't meditate. Or you try it for like 1 minute and think a lot in that 1 minute and say, oh, I can't do it, I'm thinking too much. So you need the patience and some effort, and you have to get over that hurdle. Sometimes we don't have much self-confidence. We say, oh, I'm no good, I don't know what the Buddha taught, I can't remember any of these teachings the Buddha gave, I don't know much. And so we're maybe too humble and put ourselves down and feel we're not up to it, can't do it. Some people are like that. Some people haven't got time for anything. I'm a very busy person, no time to meditate. We can always make time for things in life. It's really up to us, isn't it? One thing I always found helpful was reflecting on the fact that all the arahants in Buddhism, since the Buddha right through till today, monks, nuns, and then laymen, laywomen who've practiced well and ultimately maybe become arahants, they're not all the same type of person. Everyone has their different character. It's not like there's only one type of person who can become enlightened. They've all developed the same kind of qualities, the mindfulness, the investigation of the Dhamma, the effort, the virya, the piti, passaddhi, samadhi, upekkha. They've all developed the same upekkha, they've all purified their mind from greed, anger, delusion. There's certain similarities that every arahant will have. But character-wise, their starting point, every personality is different. Some are more talkative, some are more silent, some are very ascetic, some are more relaxed. Some can explain the Dhamma in great detail, some just give very brief teachings. Every character is different. So that means in a way there's a place for everyone because they all have one thing in common. They have a body and a mind that needs to be trained. And then they've gone through the training, they've cultivated the path. So when you have that sort of thought, oh, it's not for me, I'm not the one who can do this, maybe that's your own mind is lying to you. It's just an excuse that you're clinging on to. Maybe there's some fear of discomfort or practicing the Dhamma, it means you have to give things up, give up my little pleasures, my happinesses, have to push myself. Well, true, there's a little bit of that involved. And you need to overcome it, but everyone can do it if you put your mind to it. Only takes one moment of mindfulness, to take one in-breath and out-breath mindfully, be aware of that, and then repeat the instruction over and over again, and you've got it. It's not actually that complicated. Some people think you need to learn a lot, read all the text, remember it all, and be able to debate well in order to practice the Dhamma. Well, some people have that skill, and it is a great skill, but not everyone. Some people don't know much at all. Living in Thailand, some of the great teachers, enlightened teachers I knew, some of them had relatively small amounts of knowledge from the scriptures, from studying. Most of their knowledge and wisdom was gained just through meditation, developing mindfulness, training their mind to see defilement, let go of defilement, contemplating the impermanent nature of things, the dukkha, the suffering of the world, contemplating the lack of self in body and mind and experience. And they became wise that way. Not through study, just through observation and learning with mindfulness. Some people do study a lot and become expert in the suttas and can explain things very well, and that's good, that's useful. But not everyone. It's the same in the time of the Buddha. You probably know the story of the two brothers, Mahabandaka and Julabandaka. Both became arahants, both became enlightened, but their characters totally different. And Mahabandaka was the more traditional monk who studied a lot, could remember what the Buddha taught, could explain it, could recite it, very good at explaining things, very good at organizing the monks, organizing the monastery, full of all kinds of special qualities and skills. And he became an arahant, and he became a trusted monk in the monastery because he was so well developed. His younger brother, Julabandaka, couldn't remember anything. He was looked down on as a kind of hopeless case. You might say he's the patron saint of hopeless cases. If you're ever feeling that you don't know how to chant, you can't remember any of the Buddhist teachings, you can't meditate very well, think of Julabandaka. He was struggling as well. He struggled, he had to put up with his elder brother always castigating him, putting him down, criticizing him. The other monks in the monastery, they didn't respect him. They thought, oh, this guy is a loser, doesn't know anything, couldn't even recite one word of Pali. He just wasn't that kind of person. But he stuck with it. He didn't give up. And as Ajahn said, that's the number one quality you need, is it? Don't give up. Keep going. He kept practicing, but wasn't really getting very far. So most of the monks just gave up on him, ignored him. But if you know the story, there's a time when there was an invitation in the town and all the monks from the monastery, and the Buddha went off to the invitation. And Mahabandaka, the elder brother, was so disappointed with his younger brother, he didn't take him along, he didn't tell him. I'll just leave him in the monastery, ignore him. He doesn't know anything. Hopeless case. So off they went, but the Buddha, knowing that Julabandaka still had great potential, and with the compassion and the wisdom of a Buddha, he sent a messenger back to go and fetch him. Meanwhile, he'd been meditating, and he finally cracked it. His meditation was to meditate on, he just had a white cloth, piece of white cloth, and he just rubbed it. And as he rubbed this white cloth, some of the grease stained the cloth. The cloth changed from being a beautiful, clean, white cloth to a old, stained, dirty cloth. And he contemplated impermanence. Oh, the cloth is dirty, the cloth is dirty, over and over again, observing this cloth. So he was both mindful, paying attention, and reflecting on impermanence. and his mind gathered together in Samadhi, and he realized that every aspect of this world is impermanent, just the same. Your body, the mind, feelings, thoughts, impermanent, nothing lasts. And he became enlightened doing that on his own in the monastery. Perhaps it's because everyone left the monastery, he finally got a bit of peace and quiet, so he became enlightened. And then when the messenger came to pick him up, not only had he become enlightened, but he gained great psychic powers, and he manifested thousands of replicas of him, clones of himself. And the monk came and couldn't work out which is the real Julabandaka. So he went back to the Buddha and said, the monastery is full of monks, but I couldn't work out which is the right one to invite to the meal. And the Buddha said, go back again, call his name. So he called his name, and all the fake Julapandakas disappeared and the real one came forward. Now he was enlightened and he went off to the meal. So the Buddha didn't give up on him. Everyone else had. So don't believe the thought, I can't do it, I can't meditate, I'm no good. It's just another thought that arises, passes away. If you believe it, well, of course, you won't put any effort into your practice. It'll be an excuse. Maybe turn it on its head. Have the thought, I can do it, I can meditate. What would that do to your practice if you bring that thought up every day? I can meditate, I can do this. Bring up some positive inspiration. We're a human being. The Buddha and all the Arahants, they have a human body like us. They have a mind like us. They have feelings, thoughts, memories, just the same raw material. But they were willing to practice. They got over the hurdle of self-doubt, the excuses, the reasons that we give when we say we can't meditate, we can't do it. They got over them and they kept practicing. So they say the hardest part about meditation is starting, just beginning. Once you get into it, well, sometimes all you have to do is just keep sitting or keep walking, and sooner or later your mind will start to settle down. Sometimes it seems to happen all by itself. It's not all by itself, it comes through effort. Sati, Dhammavichaya, Virya. The effort comes through effort, through bringing up mindfulness, reflecting on the Dhamma, reminding yourself why you're meditating, and then doing it. And then the effort comes. And with the effort you start to find it, your mind settles down, it becomes more enjoyable, you're more relaxed in body and mind, and you can keep going. With your sitting, with your walking. As you become more relaxed, more tranquil, and samadhi arises, and you might even have the feeling, I can do this for ages. I can just keep sitting all day. I can keep walking for hours. And from that, upekkha arises, where you still have pain in your body coming up sometimes. You have different thoughts arising, but you're equanimous towards all of this. All the memories that normally distract you and cause you sorrow and disappointment, longing for the past, it's just that much. It's just a memory. All the thought projections into the future, you can be equanimous towards them. Okay, you can have a thought about what you might do this week, next year, for the rest of your life, next life, if you want to go there. But they're just thoughts, aren't they? You develop the equanimity, it's like, it's just thought, it's just an idea, imagination. Hasn't happened yet. And your mind returns to this base of equanimity over and over again, so it doesn't get pulled off into craving and attachment. And you start to dismantle the whole process by which craving and attachment create suffering in the mind. When the mind experiences real equanimity, then we're equanimous towards our own karma, our own physical body, our own mental states, good and bad. We're equanimous towards the world around us. It's not that you're numb or dull or don't know anything. It's just you don't react in the old way of always liking and disliking. You just know things, oh, it's like this. Pleasant experiences are just pleasant experiences. Unpleasant experiences are unpleasant experiences. Even equanimous towards, the news and the things that happen in the world that normally might worry us or make us feel sad. This is just the karma of people, and people act sometimes in unskillful ways. They hurt each other, they do unskillful things. You know it, but you don't let it cause grief or sadness in your mind. As an idea, equanimity often doesn't sound attractive to people. Sounds like you are just kind of numb to the world, don't care. Sounds cold, heartless. Perhaps not such an attractive thing, but if you ever meet someone who's developed equanimity through their practice of mindfulness and the Buddhist path, they're not cold and heartless, they're usually full of compassion. It's just that they don't suffer with the ups and downs, the pleasant and unpleasant experiences that come to the mind, because they can see that they're impermanent and they're not a self, a permanent self. The untrained mind takes everything as self. We own everything. Every little thing, every little itch, every twinge of pain in the body, every unpleasant experience that comes our way, a passing comment from another person, already your mind absorbs it, takes ownership of it, and hurts for the rest of the day or the rest of the year. If it's a bit of praise, you might remember that for the rest of the year. Oh, they praised me, finally. They said something nice about me, puts me in a good mood, floating around for the rest of the day, maybe for the rest of the year. The way of the Buddha is to establish mindfulness, maintain the equanimity. You can know praise as praise, blame as blame, pleasure as pleasure, pain as pain, but don't get lost in it. Maintain the equanimity. To do that, you need the mindfulness and reflect. This is impermanent, this is not self. It's just a condition of the world. So maybe I'll leave you with these words tonight, and in a moment we'll bow to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha and end the session.